The Hong Kong story begins with the early settlers, the fishermen and farmers who came to these beautiful islands and bays more than 800 years ago. The vast empire of China and its silken treasures has lured and enchanted Western travelers for centuries. It was in the southern province of Canton that Europeans were first allowed to settle. At the entrance to the Canton River stood the Isthmus of Macau, and on the eastern edge the island of Hong Kong. January the 26th, 1841, the British Navy took possession of Hong Kong Island. The first of the unequal treaties between Britain and China was signed in 1842. Hong Kong Island was ceded to Britain in perpetuity. The British government had appeased their merchants. The Chinese felt a sense of moral injustice. As the end of the 19th century approached, Hong Kong residents were urging the extension of its colonial boundaries. To secure Britain's interest, she leased 390 square miles of Hong Kong's hinterland in 1898. The lease was for 99 years. In 1982, Mrs. Thatcher made her historic visit to Beijing to open negotiations regarding the end of the lease. Her fall on the steps was considered a bad omen. The joint declaration was signed, whereby Hong Kong would be returned to China when the lease ran out, and in return China would maintain Hong Kong's social and economic systems for a further 50 years.
What is the basic law of Hong Kong? It comes from the joint declaration signed by China and Britain in 1984, which laid down the framework for China's approach to Hong Kong after the 1997 handover. Beijing has the right to interpret the basic law. It has done so 5 times.
Article 13. The Central People's Government shall be responsible for the foreign affairs relating to the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China shall establish an office in Hong Kong to deal with foreign affairs. Article 14. The Central People's Government shall be responsible for the defense of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. The government of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region shall be responsible for the maintenance of public order in the region. Military forces stationed by the Central People's Government in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region for defense shall not interfere in the local affairs of the region. The government of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region may, when necessary, ask the Central People's Government for assistance from the garrison in the maintenance of public order and in disaster relief. Article 18. In the event that the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress decides to declare a state of war or, by reason of turmoil within the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, which endangers national unity or security and is beyond the control of the government of the region, decides that the region is in a state of emergency, the Central People's Government may issue an order applying the relevant national laws in the region. Article 23. The Hong Kong Special Administrative Region shall enact laws on its own to prohibit any act of treason, secession, sedition, subversion against the Central People's Government, or theft of state secrets, to prohibit foreign political organizations or bodies from conducting political activities in the region, and to prohibit political organizations or bodies of the region from establishing ties with foreign political organizations or bodies. These laws have not been enacted, but Article 18 would permit for them to be installed as a national law. The suspended bill poses a direct threat to U.S. security and economic interests as well as the safety of Americans. Well, actually no. If you can get a visa to travel to China, you are under no more threat if you are in Hong Kong. If you would be opposed by Chinese immigration, you really should not go to Hong Kong. Protesters have been met with violence, and Beijing has accused the U.S. of fomenting the unrest. Well, that is not a crime and nor is it balanced. Protesters have been met with violence because they are rioting. The rioting is causing thousands and thousands of dollars of damage. You say Beijing is accusing the U.S. Well, that is a true statement. You were providing funds to anti-China organizations via the Congressional Office of NED. You were meeting with known anti-China millionaires. We therefore urge you to issue a strong statement condemning Beijing's efforts to undermine Hong Kong's autonomy, endanger U.S. residents of Hong Kong, and its suspected use of hired thugs to suppress the protests by the people of Hong Kong. Well, that is a mouthful of crap. News alert: Hong Kong is part of China. It would be like China inserting itself between the U.S. and Puerto Rico, American Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, Virgin Islands. U.S. residents in Hong Kong are there at the pleasure of China, much like non-citizen residents in the USA can be asked to leave or deported. Thugs in Hong Kong doing the bidding of political parties. Have you ever heard of Antifa, the KKK, the Italian Mafia? The Hong Kong SAR government refused to address the concerns of Hong Kong's business and civil leaders or the millions of Hong Kong residents who demonstrated peacefully against the bill on June 9, June 12, and June 16, 2019. Well, half-truths again. The civil leaders you refer to are the anti-China renegades. People like Fernando Chiu, an American vice chair of the Labour Party who supervised the assault of a suspected pro-China protester, which later turned out to be a bystander. Fernando was present and did not stop the protesters from destroying the chambers of the Legislative Council. That would be like destroying the House of Representative chambers and the Senate chambers and just standing by instead of calling for security. Business leaders have stated they are for stability and that China is not a problem. The only business leaders that are concerned are the ones that were part of the Jiang Zemin administration that are avoiding corruption prosecution by living in Hong Kong. An estimated 300 persons. After 1 month of protesting, it is interesting you can only find 3 days that the protesters were non-violent. Although the Hong Kong SAR government suspended the extradition bill in response to public opposition, they did not withdraw it. Peaceful demonstrations have continued. However, they have been followed by violent confrontations between police and demonstrators. The truth is it will not be withdrawn. The new session will start after the October elections, and if there are enough votes, the law will be enacted. Isn't that how it is done in America? It is completely false to say the demonstrators are peaceful. It has become more like insurgent warfare. People and organizations with money are behind the demonstrations. Protesters are well supplied with printed posters, water, riot gear, training, weapons, communications, tools, and organizers. This is beyond a single local leader. The police are often stocked and seriously outnumbered. Their reluctance to act would border on cowardice by most American police departments. The Hong Kong police force has repeatedly targeted journalists and needlessly endangered lives through their careless use of non-lethal crowd control equipment. On Sunday night, July 22, 2019, suspected organized criminals likely backed by the Chinese Communist Party attacked demonstrators and ordinary citizens alike at the Yuen Long MTR station. Although some arrests were made, Hong Kong police did little to stem the violence or to hold those responsible to account. Now, that is out-and-out fake news. No American police department would allow news to be so integrated into the actions. If a news person gets hurt, it is because they are not staying a safe distance. The triads are an integrated part of Cantonese culture. The police have an entire department to investigate triad activities. It has been known for decades that the triads do business across country lines. Like other Hong Kong citizens, they too have political views. The slow response by the police could be attributed to the demoralized state of the police by the fake news, and that they too don't like to engage the triads. The triads often have long memories and can be extremely violent. Up to this point, the police had shown great restraint in arresting anyone anywhere. Considering there had been millions of people protesting, less than 100 people had been arrested up to this point. Find any city in the US where that much restraint would have been exhibited. Beijing appears only to be contributing to the escalating tensions in Hong Kong. Chinese officials have reportedly made veiled threats to US diplomats and residents of Hong Kong and suggested there may be grounds for intervention by the People's Liberation Army in Hong Kong. Such statements are unacceptable and demand a strong response from the United States and the international community. Failure to respond to Beijing's threats will only encourage Chinese leaders to act with impunity. Maybe the senators and representatives need a history lesson. If China wants to raise tensions in Hong Kong, it is their prerogative. Hong Kong is a region of China. China can make veiled threats, and the United States better pay attention. The basic law states clearly that the Central People's Government may issue an order applying the relevant national laws in the region for reason of turmoil which endangers national unity or security. China has been waiting 177 years to get Hong Kong back. As China told England, "We will get it back even if it is to be a barren rock." By inserting your point of contention, it will only accelerate the process. If China has to apply national laws to get stability, it is very unlikely they will ever be removed. No Hong Kong protester should ever be encouraged to think the second handover in 2047 will mean anything other than one country, one system. Hong Kong's governance is not China's internal affair. China must abide by the terms and the spirit of the 1984 Sino-British Joint Declaration, a legally binding treaty that guarantees Hong Kong's legal autonomy from the mainland. United States interests are at stake if Hong Kong's autonomy is further eroded. The Chinese government's willingness to uphold its international commitments have a direct bearing on whether any agreement with Beijing, especially on trade, can ever be trusted. You begin with a statement that is 100% wrong. As President Trump has said several times now, this is an issue for the President of China. This truly is an internal affair of China. Maybe you were not aware of the handover of 1997 that officially made it so. United States interests in Hong Kong are at the pleasure of the Chinese government, it is their country. Hosting anti-Chinese Hong Kong separatists does not bode well for President Trump's desire to close a trade deal. In fact, it is almost as if these politicians are trying to stop President Trump from concluding the trade deal before the 2020 elections.
They are simply asking this government to be responsible. And so we are demanding that we could have universal suffrage in this city.
You never had it under the British. You're asking of China what you were never given by the British. They never gave you universal suffrage.
To do something that is clearly stated in this contract.
I'm not sure it has promised that. Let me quote to you from 5 years ago. This is quoted in the South China Morning Press. Liu Kang, who was then at the Chinese Foreign Ministry, as a historical document, no longer has any practical significance. It is not at all binding for the central government's management over Hong Kong. The UK has no sovereignty, no power to rule, and no power to supervise Hong Kong once the handover had happened.
Trying to open up the barriers, I think. You can see the CCTV has been obscured. All the shops are closed. This hose has been unraveled. There's been some efforts by protesters to flood some staircases. It appears this is a metal barrier that can be made to come down, if that's what the protesters seem to be doing here. Are you sort of like technicians for the protest movement? I see you've got a lot of tools on your
basically
on your person.
Yeah, basically you can say that. I'm just trying to make more barricades to keep our protesters safe. Because, you know, in every process, every time if we don't have any barricade or something, they're just breaching through easily the police. So I just trying to do my job and do as much as I can.
So one of your jobs is to create barricades as well in the streets?
Yeah, basically you're right.
Young protesters pelt riot police with objects. Police respond by firing tear gas and rubber bullets into the crowd, and a broader call to retain freedoms that make Hong Kong distinct from mainland China.
OK， 阿 Sir， 影面咋，影面咋。俾條路阿 Sir 行啦。阿 Sir 入唔到。
Integrity got you texting, emailing me, wanting me to feel with you. Baby, just face reality, move on. Sometimes it's hard to face reality.